We're seeing the border crisis too turn some border towns that were traditionally blue really red too. So that's
absolutely
positive.
McAllen, Texas, elected a Republican mayor.
Well, isn't it hilarious how as soon as left-wing people actually have to face the consequences of their policies, instead of getting to shove it off onto somebody else, they mysteriously turn red?
Or they leave.
Or they leave.
Think about it in this context, because we talked about getting the news out, how the news media twisted everything, and that's why I think it's important people listen to this, right? You know, did I mention people ought to share this? Did I mention that?
Yes, absolutely. And you are so correct.
Leave a comment too.
I didn't know if I mentioned that or not.
Super chat us.
Yes.
But so they're not getting real news down there. But when they see illegals coming across the border, now when I was in the state house, I was on the border committee my second term. I was the vice chair, and back then in that 1 year it was 2011 rather, there was 5,000 Texans who were either hurt, raped, violently attacked, burglarized, murdered, killed by people who shouldn't even be in Texas. And let me do some math for you. If we've got 70,000 kids coming across the border in a month, and we've had that, if you think about kindergarten education, K through 12, I was on the public education committee for 4 years, K through 12, do this math. If you've got 70,000 kids coming across the border, let's just say the average school K through 12 is 10,000. That is 7 complete school districts that you have to fund, right? Somebody's got to fund. Now, I get that they don't all stay in Texas. You know, the federal government is their logistics group. The drug lords bring them up here, human trafficking, and we latch on to NGOs and under the Biden administration, and they move them inland. But somebody's going to pay to educate those kids, and that's per month when we have those kinds of months. 7 complete school districts.
Per month.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for years, the Democrats have argued that it's misinformation to say that illegal immigrants receive any kind of welfare or state funding. And firstly, there actually are illegal immigrants who have family members who are on welfare, and so they receive it that way. But also, when you enter into a country and you're not registered in the system and paying taxes, but you're receiving benefits from the system, it's functionally the exact same problem.
One of the most interesting points that I was reading about when it comes to illegal immigration is how they affect the presidential vote. Because the way we vote is by electoral college.
Right.
And so when you get non-citizens in a district, they still count towards the
census.
Right.
Yep.
So that means that a state with a large population of non-citizens will get an extra district or two based on those non-citizens, which means an extra electoral college vote.
That's right. And Texas got 2. Texas got 2 this year. And by the way,
2 extra seats because of non-citizens?
Well,
just population growth?
Well, we had both. I mean, it's hard to say how many our great Border Patrol and our great Texas DPS, and we've got a lot of folks down on the border. We love our law enforcement down there. When I was in the Texas House, my first term, we put $200 million on the border. And that was for helicopters and boats and ships, gunboats, literally. We've got 5 boats on Rio Grande River with machine guns. Louis Gomer and I have been down there and actually toured that area. Now they're putting $3 billion a session, because they only meet every other year, sessions 2 years on the border. And the federal government's not doing their job.
Yeah.
We're growing. We don't know how many people we've lost. They will give you the number that they handled, and then they'll give you an estimate on the getaways that they don't know how many got away.
Have you talked to some of these people down in these border districts as to what's going on? Like, what are people thinking and feeling as to why they're switching from Democrats to Republicans?
Absolutely. I've been down the border probably 5 or 6 times, been in there a number of times. Remember the Freedom Caucus? We've been down there. I went down there really twice when I was in the Texas legislature, and then I've been there 4, 5, 6 times I've been in Congress. And they're sick and tired of it. If you talk to the ranchers and the farmers and the business owners down there and the city officials, they're tired of Biden's policy. They're tired of just letting them come across. It's unbelievable.
I've heard some crazy stories.
Oh, listen, and this is sickening, but the drug lords down there, they will make those young girls, they'll take them and they will be violated, raped, if you will. They will be violated numerous times coming up across the border there. And they actually have trees where they hang the clothing of their victims. We're talking women's underwear and stuff like that in trees, and they call them rape trees, they call them. And I've been there and seen with my own eyes. It's appalling, and I don't get why the Biden administration and the Democrats don't see that. They need to stay in their own country if they want to claim asylum, then they can stay. Then go to the embassy in that country.
When you give people accurate information, it's interesting how the Democrat narrative makes no sense. So,
That's right.
for instance, you go to a regular American and say, should the United States help people who are fleeing gang violence and need asylum? They'll probably say yes. You'll say, then yet follow up. If these people are coming from, say, Brazil, should they be allowed to trek all the way up through all of these countries and through Mexico into the United States for asylum? Most people will say, wait, what? No. Once they've escaped the danger, they're
Right.
safe where they are. They can
That's
stay
right.
there, right?
That's right.
So what's happening now is we're hearing stories about people traveling from Ethiopia, from Africa,
The Horn of Africa.
overseas
Absolutely.
to Brazil. And you know what really offends me about this? They land in Brazil and then they trek all the way up to the United States. Brazil's awesome.
Right.
I was chilling on Copacabana on the beach with a coconut, and I'm like, what about Brazil do you not? I don't understand. But I get it. America is
It's the benefits. It's
benefits,
it's the
wealth.
benefits.
We're a wealthier nation than Brazil, and so they're safe in this country, but they're willing to risk the lives of their children and themselves because America is just that much better. Well, you ask a regular person, should we grant them asylum? They're going to say no.
Absolutely. Well, Tim, when I was there, the director of the DPS there, my youngest son's a special agent for the FBI, and Steve McCraw was a former FBI guy, retired, and Rick Perry appointed him. And we found out I had an FBI family. We had a great relationship. And he told me that there's 40 different Eastern religious sects, S-E-C-T-S. 40 different, this is 2009. 40 different Eastern religious sects coming across our southern porous border. We don't know who's here. We don't know who's here. That ought to scare people big time.
Islamic extremists are also making plans to come up from the Horn of Africa, and they're coming in. I think it was like Joseph Umai or somebody that had been tracking that for a really long time.
I've actually heard from several journalists that extremist groups know they can enter through the southern border rather easily,
Yeah.
and that's one of the main ways to get in.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
One of the points you were making is about how as soon as you have more information, the Democratic narrative falls apart. And that's a huge part of the reason why they have to call people names for disagreeing with them and why they have to frame every issue really dishonestly. So if you look at the conversation that we're having on border security very plainly, it's essentially one group of people saying, there should be some vetting of people at the border. We should have a handle on who's in here. People should become citizens because we, as a democratic nation, supposedly where the people have a say, should have some say on who's entering the country. The other side of the discussion is literally just there should literally be zero oversight on who is entering the country. The people should have absolutely no say. When you put it that way, it's extremely obvious which side of the issue you should be on, whether you consider yourself liberal or conservative. But the way they frame it is, well, either you think everyone should be able to come here and get whatever benefits they want, or you're racist.
Yeah. And if we don't have a border, we're not a sovereign country. And people accuse me all the time, Randy. And by the way, I have a website, randyweber.org. So if anybody wants to see what I believe, it's easy to find me, randyweber.org. But I tell people all the time, they say, well, you just hate Mexicans, people south of the border, and Hispanics and that kind of stuff. And I said, no. And they said, you don't like immigration. You just want to close the whole border down. I said, no. My grandfather and my grandmother came over on the boat from Germany. I am the grandson of German immigrants. I wouldn't even be here. But guess what? They did it legally. And that's what we're saying. Come in to build the country. Don't come in to take from the country. And that's the difference.
Well, and not only that, it isn't simply an argument on the ethics of why a person should want to come here. It's simply a statement that we should have some handle on who's coming here. We should know who's in our country.
It's constitutional. Congress makes immigration and naturalization laws, not the President of the United States.
But we really need to think about why they don't care, why they think it should be that way. They want these people to come in because they want them, again, dependent on them so that they'll get their votes and they can maintain more power and implement their progressive ideologies.
I think we should allow every single person on the planet to immigrate to the United States, but it's got to be through a controlled legal process, which means there's also going to be certain times at which we can't allow people to come in. What I mean to say is everyone should have the opportunity to try.
Absolutely.
But this means if we can't handle the burden, it means if we can figure out where people can go to. I went to Sweden to explore the refugee crisis and a lot of the claims that were being made about it. A lot of people on the right were saying that violent crime was through the roof. because of these refugees that were coming from the war in the Middle East. As it turns out, while that was partly true, there was an increase in crime for that reason. A lot of the crime we were seeing was due to the Somali refugees of the 80s and 90s and their children growing up feeling stateless, feeling like they weren't part of the community. Why? What happened was when those people came in the 90s, Sweden didn't track where they were going, what they were doing, and so they formed enclaves. They were told by Sweden, okay, everybody move here and then you're good. So then they had kids. Those kids grow up in an area where everyone speaks the same language, but they're Swedish citizens. But people in Sweden who are white, natives, did not view them as Swedish. They viewed them as immigrants. Then they would go home to their home country to see their parents, and they would be called Swedish. So all of a sudden, you have these individuals who feel stateless because they weren't able to integrate. They weren't given the opportunity. The reason why you have checkpoints and borders and an immigration process is to maximize the opportunity for those who are actually coming to the country. If you look at what the left is defending with these porous borders, it's children wandering through 90 miles of open desert, being found dead in ditches, being left without parents, being left sick. One of the most disgusting things I saw, there was a young child, I think it was a little girl, maybe like 11 years old, who died. And the news reports were like, child dies in ICE custody, and it's all this crazy. And then the story actually was, the ICE found a sick girl dying in the desert and did everything in their power to try and save her life. And so they rushed her to the facility, and she died, and the media tried framing it like they killed her.
I remember that.
Yep.
I've been there with my own eyes and seen the facilities that they have. And let me back up and just say this, too, that, look, if we're going to let if Congress is going to increase the immigration quotas by country that we have, that's up to Congress. That's constitutional. But we're going to have the facilities and the infrastructure to do that. We're going to have immigration courts, immigration judges, immigration officers, and we're going to have facilities. And so it's going to cost the American taxpayer more dollars. So here's the question. Shouldn't we, when somebody comes to America and wants to immigrate and come across the border, should we charge them $50, $100, $500? Should they help pay for the infrastructure?
Absolutely.
It's going to take? Absolutely.
USCIS already processes, though, 1 million petitions a year. We let in about 500,000 immigrants from all over the place every year, and people don't realize that. We take in the most amount of immigrants out of any other nation in the entire world. Our immigration system, while it has its issues, is still letting in so many people. Think about that. You're letting in 500,000 people legally a year on green card petitions, and they process 1 million applications.
Yeah. To your point about how much should people pay when they come in, some of these stories, we hear about families spending $3,000
or more.
And so it's fascinating to me that the narrative from the left is often, these poor refugees who are so broke and helpless. And I'm like, they got $3,000
to pay drug cartels.
To get trafficked up here, and it's dangerous. They don't got $50 to help us afford the cost to make sure that. We're talking about helping people who are genuine asylees or whatever get proper placement. That means we need infrastructure. We got to pay for it.
It does cost money to immigrate here through like USCIS, but they have fee petition waivers that you can fill out, and you can come here for free. You can, fill out all the paperwork and file it with USCIS if you file a fee petition waiver and claim some hardship. So it's actually less expensive to do it the right way than it is to come over and be smuggled by drug cartels.
Unless you're trying to break through the border and sneak into the country.
Yeah. Exactly.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.